Welcome to my talk on Gamerzilla. Gamerzilla is an idea I've had for a while now, but and I've proposed it to various people, and some of them like it, some of them do not. But before we get into what Gamerzilla is, I'd like to talk about how I came to implementing Gamerzilla. So all games have a goal. Now, it may be something simple like just getting a certain score. Um, there may be there may be a actual end goal for the game that you can win. But there are extra game tasks as well. Some of them are made up by the players themselves. Some of them end up being represented in the game. For example, you might have stars for how you complete a level. So if you completed it in a particular under a particular time, you get 5 stars. If you did less, maybe you only get 3 stars. The Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda there. One of the things I would do as a kid would be to try to play the game without actually picking up the initial sword. You can do this by going over and getting the secret stashes at the beginning and buying the blue candle, which then allows you to kill one enemy on the screen. Sometimes more than one if you're lucky. But basically, you can only put out one flame, and then you'd have to leave the screen and come back to be able to create a new flame. So it adds a significant challenge to the game, but allows you to get pretty far before you have to actually pick up the final sword to win the game. Super Tux there has all sorts of statistics that it keeps on each level. So you have the maximum number of coins you collected. So maybe you go through the whole level and found, oh, I missed a few coins. Let me go back and do the level again to try to max out all the coins. Or you might do it for, well, I think I can do it faster. And so you go back and play the game again, but try to complete the level at a faster speed. Now the Xbox introduced the first online achievement system for across multiple games. Since then, the PlayStation and Steam have both adopted them. So those started with the PlayStation 3 had support, and the Xbox 360 was the first with support for that system. GOG has since added support for an achievement system as well. Right now, itch.io does not have one. Neither does Epic Games, although Epic has expressed interest in adding in a trophy or achievement system. The problem with these is that you end up with this situation where you're going to have to implement them differently for each one. If you're lucky, maybe you have a tool that abstracts the interface away to some degree, but more than likely you're going to have to implement this multiple times or make multiple builds. So you have a Steam build that has its achievement system hooked in, you have a GOG build, and open source and free software has been left out. Now, part of the problem there is that open source games, we don't have a central server for the platform. You know, when you go over and you make a PlayStation game, you know that your achievements are going to be stored on Sony's servers. Xbox, they'll be stored on the Microsoft servers, and Steam, and so on. Free software doesn't have that. We don't even have a way of registering games when they're released. So you can't go over and get a list of all the achievements for all games. Additionally, the free software users tend to value privacy more. So they'd rather not be giving all their information as to how far they've gotten in every single game to a single company. Now, the companies generally use that information for recommending games to you, and that could be helpful. But it might also prevent you from hearing about some games because their recommendation system doesn't think that you should, doesn't recommend those games to you because it doesn't think you'd be interested. Now, free software and open source software has had the same problem with social networks. People go over and join up on Twitter, join up on Facebook, and all those systems are controlled by a single company, and you lose all your privacy. Now, we've been somewhat successful in creating a new series of social networks, collectively referred to as the Fediverse. Every single server is separated from each other. There's no one company controlling everything. And they all run a variety of different software systems as well. So even if there was a security hole in one, it wouldn't necessarily compromise the whole network. Now, we haven't gone over and eliminated Facebook or eliminated Twitter, but we do compete. And so it gives us a model as to what we could do with an open source trophy or achievement system. Now, the free game dev group set up a Hubzilla server, which I tried out. The Hubzilla has a lot of capabilities to it, and one of the things that you can go over and do is add in plugins. So in looking over the plugin system, I determined that I was pretty sure you could create a trophy or achievement system using it. After Liber Planet 2020, I decided to actually implement that system. So here we have some screenshots of the initial Gamerzilla system. All of the interaction with Gamerzilla is done with JSON. So although this is implemented with Hubzilla, it wouldn't be that hard to create its own standalone system. Or if you had a different social networking system, you could maybe implement it on that. Ideally, I was hoping that I could write one plugin that would support both Hubzilla and Friendica, which is what Hubzilla was based off of. But their API has diverged enough that that was not possible. A system like Mastodon really doesn't have the infrastructure to do something like this, but it doesn't have to be implemented in the Fediverse. You could go over and implement this sort of system as its own standalone server. Maybe if we get enough developers that are interested in game developers that support this system, we could convince Epic Games or itch.io to not develop their own achievement system and instead just use this one that's already in existence. So how does it work? We've got the Hubzilla server out in the cloud. It may be your own server, it may be run by some other group like the Free Game Dev or whatever. Gamerzilla is a plugin that you install into Hubzilla. Plugins in Hubzilla are really easy to install. It talks with a game launcher. The game launcher uses the libgamerzilla. Libgamerzilla will start up some local interprocess communication, and games will communicate through to the game launcher using that. Games themselves will also use libgamerzilla, and that's what'll do the communication for them. If games wanted to, they could skip the game launcher and instead talk directly to Hubzilla. The problem with doing that is that then games would have to have a screen to allow you to enter in the URL, the login name, username. So the game launcher allows you to only enter that information in once and allow it to be designed securely instead of having to implement it multiple times in each game. Now, everything in this system is cached and synced automatically. So if you go over and play a game with the game launcher not connected to the internet, it will store all of the data locally, and then once you're back online, it will automatically sync up with Hubzilla. Same with the game. If you go over and don't launch the game launcher, it will save all the information, and then the next time you start up the game and it finds the game launcher there, it will automatically sync all the data back. If you were to go over and play it on a different machine, but enter in all your information, it would update Hubzilla, and then when you start up the game launcher, it'll automatically find out that, oh, you've already gotten these additional achievements and mark them completed locally. libgamerzilla is coded in C. The reason for that is that pretty much all languages have support for integration with C libraries, and I wanted to be able to support as many games as possible. In fact, the first game that I actually added support for Gamerzilla to was Seahorse Adventures, and Seahorse Adventures is written in Python. But let's say you have a game in C. The first thing you need to do is you need to call Gamerzilla start. The first parameter there is false, and in this case that is telling you, the Gamerzilla, that this is not a game launcher. So you are only storing information for a single game. You need to give it a directory it's going to save the local achievement data to, so that if the game launcher is not online, it can go over and save it there and sync up with the game launcher later. Unix programs typically would go over and save information like that in the dot files. The newest standard is to do .local, and in that sort of directories. The Windows games tend to go over and store the information more in the local directory of the game. Free software developers alternate as to what style they do. So some of them will save it in the .local files. Some of them will save it in the directory of the game. This Gamerzilla does not mandate one way or the other. After you've started up libgamerzilla support, you need to create a Gamerzilla object and some Gamerzilla trophies. You initialize the Gamerzilla object with Gamerzilla init game. You need to set up a bunch of different fields. The version number needs to be greater than 0. When you go over and create this, you're not allowed to change the trophies that you have available after it's been created. The only thing that you can do is increment the version number and add additional trophies. All the existing trophies have to stay. And now here we also go over and add in one trophy, and then we call Gamerzilla set game. That returns back a game ID. That's used for all the later calls. So over here we have Gamerzilla set trophy, and we are setting the win game trophy as achieved. Now, in this example, I'm only creating a one trophy, but imagine that we had a second trophy that was Slayer, and it would store how many enemies you've killed. So in that case, you want to go over and find out how many kills you've had in the past and add 2 more kills that you've just gotten, for example. And so you would do that with the get trophy stat and the set trophy stat. Now, set trophy stat and set trophy both immediately send the data to the game launcher. If you're recording information like how many kills you had, that might not be something you want to be doing every time you kill an enemy. Maybe you want to batch it up so that at the end of the level you send that information or something like that. Currently you have to manually handle that. And then once the program is done, you call Gamerzilla quit. What if you're developing a game launcher? How do you add support for Gamerzilla into that? Right now you can't. The API to implement that is not complete yet. You can go take a look at Gamerzilla server.c. It's a simple server that I've created that all it does is connect to Hubzilla and listen for local games to update their data and just passes on the information. I have talked with a couple game launchers like Lutris. There's also GameHub, although I haven't gotten in contact with them yet. Right now, no game launcher has agreed to support the libgamerzilla or to support Gamerzilla. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get a chance to implement support for one of the game launchers and that they'll accept it. Ideally, I'd like to have them support it add support themselves, but Probably the best way to get them to support the system at the moment is to just get as many games to add in support for Gamerzilla as possible. Eventually get enough user interest where the game launchers need to support it. Thank you for your time and interest in my Gamerzilla project.